So earlier this week, I saw a creator on here talking about the difference between a raven and a crow. And I commented because I saw a raven maybe 2 years ago, and it was the biggest bird I ever saw in my life. The biggest. And my best friend and I were in the car together, and but like, I think I was driving and I slowed down. And I was like, what is that? She was like, holler out the window and ask, because there was a guy following it with his camera. And I was like, what kind of bird is that? And he's like, I think it's a raven. Mind you, the bird was huge. The bird was huge. But with that being said, I saw that video this week and I made that comment, and I'm working on my podcast episode, and this episode will be called Ancestors and Intuition. And I'm working on this episode because of the relationship that I've developed with my ancestors, specifically my father who transitioned 9 years ago. And to prepare for that episode, I brought out my father's notes. So my dad was a pastor, and he's left plenty of notes as a part of his legacy. I wish he would have left money, but I'll be okay with the notes. But as I was going, well, not even as I was going through his notes, I opened up his notes just to a random page. And the first thing I saw when I opened up those notes were Raven. Is a catch-all term for crows, which I don't think that's entirely true. But he wrote, Raven is a catch-all term for crows. They were considered unclean by the Hebrew people. Ravens are scavenger birds that will eat almost anything. These birds were known for their practice of pecking out the eyes of a body, a quick way to determine whether their meal was actually dead. And then he has Proverbs 30:17. So I'm like, I was just talking about ravens. What's my dad trying to tell me? What's God trying to tell me? So I immediately go to Proverbs 30:17. And that led me to the four insatiables. Now, the four insatiables starts on Proverbs 15. And I'm going to read it so you all get a feel of what I'm trying to say or where I'm even going with this. I'm not even sure where I'm fully going with this, but maybe we can get there together. But in the King James Version, it says, the leech has two daughters, give and give. There are three things that are never satisfied. Four never say enough: the grave, the barren womb, the earth that is not satisfied with water, and the fire that never says enough. The eye that mocks his father and scorns obedience to his mother, the ravens of the valley will pick it out, and the young eagles will eat it. So then I was like, okay, well, what does insatiable mean? The four insatiables. And it says, insatiable is impossible to satisfy. And revisiting those four insatiables, it said the grave, the barren womb, the land, and the fire. And with that, it is the grave that is always claiming more life. Death never stops. The barren womb, which is longing for children, and the land that is not being nourished by water, and the fire, because a fire will never extinguish unless it is put out. These are four things that will never say enough. And then as I'm reading this and thinking about this, it led me right back to the beginning, Proverbs 15, where it says, the leech has two daughters, give and give. And it made me think about the leeches, the leeches that have been in my life, the leeches who have only wanted more and more and more with nothing to offer up. And giving, when you stop giving, you become the enemy or you become the problem, because how dare you see your worth? How dare you pour into yourself the things I'm not willing to pour into me, because I want you to pour into me. I want you to fill my cup. And I think about it being very easy for me to pour into other people, pour into people's businesses, just pour into people, because my cup runneth over, my pour comes from God. I believe in God, okay? That's who fills my cup. And as much as I tried to give to people, as much as I tried to pour love into people, it was never enough. And it was never enough to the point where I had to experience horrendous things for me to say, Misha, enough is enough. These people will never pour into you the way you've poured into them, because they're leeches, and enough is never enough. So I'm sure there's more I can go into with this. I'm going to sit on this for probably today so I can continue to prepare my notes to record my podcast episode. But This in itself is an example of ancestors and intuition and how I feel like my ancestors, specifically my dad, speaks to me through these notes that he left. Because why am I, I just talked about a raven this week, and now I'm opening his notes to a raven, and it's leading me to places that are helping me sort through my own, interactions with people, and how people will use you for their own gain, whether that's financial, whether that's spiritual, whether that's to erase and eradicate their own karma to put it on you. And it's important to be able to identify when you are giving and giving and giving, because people will take until you're fully depleted. So, yeah. I don't know who needed to hear that, but I know I needed to say it. And if you want to hear more or the full episode when it comes out, make sure you check out my podcast, Pieces of Mish podcast. It is on my Pieces of Mish YouTube channel, and the link to my YouTube is in my bio. So thanks, y'all.